Hi everyone. Hi guys. Hope you're all doing well. Um, Let me know if you can hear me. I did try to use my phone, but I'm using my laptop because my phone the sound is always bad. But let me know if the sound is bad as on here as well. If the sound is bad on here as well, I'll try something else. But on my phone, my voice it can't be heard, and the sound is so bad all the time. And I'm trying the laptop to see if it works. So if it doesn't work, just let me know. I hope you're all doing well. I'm come on this live to talk about charitable Jezebels, like um, the jezebelic parents that are, communal narcissists, people that do good for validation. They don't have empathy, they don't have compassion, they don't have the fruits of the spirit, but they have the obsessive image and stuff like that. So I'm here to talk about charitable Jezebels and the importance of knowing that what you see is not always what you it's not it's fake. Sometimes when you see people doing good, it's because they're obsessed with the validation they get. Some people are codependent, people pleasers, because their image is so important to them and they don't want their image to be destroyed. So it's so important to know that sometimes when it comes to charitable Jezebels, it's important not to be jealous of the children, because sometimes we have spiritual mothers, spiritual fathers, and we have children that are like foster kids, adopted kids, spiritual kids, church kids. They get obsessed with somebody. They're like, oh my gosh, she's such a good mom. She's such a good mother, and oh, he's such a good father. And they idolize that leader, idolize that mother, and they feel like, oh, if I have a mother like that, I'll be more grateful. I'll be more. They just have a fantasy what it's like. So I think the first one I'll talk about is I'll talk about jealousy from extended children. Jealousy from extended children. So you can get jealousy from foster kids, adopted kids, spiritual children, and these can be grown women as well, grown men and women in church. They might have a spiritual mother that they or spiritual father they idolize or put on a pedestal, and sometimes when they see the biological kids are jealous and they're put on a pedestal and they have this jealousy towards them. They feel like they're so lucky, they feel like they're so blessed, and sometimes it can make biological kids feel uncomfortable because they feel like they have 100% access when that's not the case. So it's really, really important to understand that. I'll talk about, because when it comes to spiritual mothers, when it comes to, you know, when it comes to like being a parent, sometimes we get jealousy from different people. So we have number one, spiritual children. So this could be a grown woman. This person could idolize someone's parent. When they're going through stuff, they can talk to the person about anything. This could be even a child in children's church. They might have a neglectful parent, and they see the other mother at church as a spiritual mother, the mother they wish they had. This could be a foster parent. Their parent probably died or was neglectful, abandoned them. So they see their new mother, like adopted mother or foster mother, as their brand new mother, and sometimes they can get jealous of the biological children. So it's a whole list. And when you, I'm trying to make people understand how jealousy and idolizing a parent is wrong. It's bad to be jealous of some biological kids. It's really wrong to idolize and be jealous of biological kids, because they sacrifice so much. They don't have the access that people think they do. You know, as you think about it, you have to think about the sacrifice they make when the spiritual mother makes a sacrifice to share resources. Like biological children have to share their resources. They don't have their mother or father 24/7. They've got to sacrifice their time. They've got to sacrifice their resources they got to sacrifice their space, because sometimes people are very, very broken and needy. They're very broken and needy and desperate, lonely, have depression, feel lost. They trying to fill a void, and they push the they have to push the biological children to the side because there's stuff they have to do. And when it comes down to objectification and jealousy, it can make things worse for the biological children, because it's like, oh, they're now taking my mother, but now I've got to deal with the jealousy. I've got to deal with the death stares. I've got to deal with the passive aggressive behavior, the jealousy, and that murder spirit. They got to deal with that murder spirit. Like, I want your mom. I want your dad. And they have that mindset. Like, if I just kill this person, life would be better, and I have her to myself. So when it comes to communal parents, it's so important not to idolize them. So I'm going to go over what I talked about, because I talked about because it's not just, it could be a whole village, like, because sometimes we have blood for extended family members as well. So we have, I make a list of it. We have spiritual children. This could be a child at church. This could be a growing adult at church that's needy, that's lonely, and they could be jealous of what the biological children have. Like, oh, if I had a mum like that, like, she talks to me all day, she does this for me. When I beg her for money, she gives it to me. So we have that. Then we have the foster children, and then when they're foster children, they come from abuse, and they come from neglect and stuff like that, and probably a loss of a parent. They come as well, and then adopted kids as well, like adoption as well. So we have adopted kids, and then we have I think I said it before, they have the extended blood family. So this could be like a cousin, a nephew, or anybody, or a niece, and then they're like, oh, you know what, you are a good mum. I wish my mum was like that. I wish my mum was like your mum. Like, and they have this jealousy. So as you add that all together, you notice that the biological child has crumbs. They're getting crumbs. But when it comes to idolization of a parent, they don't see it that way. They see, like, if I was there 24/7, I'll be more accomplished, I'll be more nurtured, and I have this fantasy in their head. And this is why it's dangerous, because if you have time to think about it, when they're spending time, all those people you're spending time with, foster kids, adopted kids, spiritual kids, extended family member kids, when you add that all together, the biological parent, the biological children don't have anything, barely have anything. If anything, they get the crumbs, they get the passive aggressive attitude, like, oh, after everything I've done for them, they get the crumbs, they get the real face. So it's really important not to be jealous of biological kids, because they sacrifice so much. They sacrifice so much. I'm just telling you, like, when it comes to sharing, what would you want to share your parents? Because some people get the validation. They got evidence that their mum's neglectful. They have evidence that their mum is neglectful. They have evidence that their mother is selfish. They have evidence. They're like, you know what? You're in the system. You know, your mother neglected you. You were left alone. They know it. They can tell. You know, some Jezebels, it's obvious that they're jezebelic. They don't do charity work. They're not in church. They don't care, and it's more obvious. But it's less obvious for people that are in church and doing ministry, that they're very arrogant and they're selfish and exploitive, and people can't see that because they cover up their shame with ministry and giving money, because they're so immoral and selfish and greedy and exploitive. They have to rebuild their brand. They have to clean up their image. They have to clean up their image. It's so important to clean up their image. So when it comes down to cleaning their image, it's so important to them to, like, it's really important for them to be like, oh yeah, if I do this, if I serve 24/7, if I give money, people are gonna be shocked if someone tries to, come for me. I've got evidence I'm doing good. So they try to cover up the shame with charitable work and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go down the list of the type as well. Like, so number one is they're having to share time. So when they share time, the biological children get abandoned. They have to be neglected and they get abandoned. But because the parent is doing something good, they get gaslit. They're gaslighted. Oh, she's doing good. She's not on drugs. She's not going clubbing. She's doing a good thing. It tries to take away from the fact that they're neglecting them. So they have to hold this shame and anger of being abandoned. But the person gets a pass of doing that because they're doing ministry. They're doing, they're taking care of the depressed. They're taking care of the sick and stuff like that. And it's not like they got to deal with that silent grief of like neglect. They don't have to because God sees it. God sees the neglect and abandonment, but because they're doing so much good things, they get to hide from. They get to hide that. They get to be like, oh, you know what? I'm helping the sick. I'm taking care of people. I'm building something. I'm in ministry, so they get to hide behind that. So it's really really important to know that you abandon somebody, it's still abandonment. It's still neglect. You're still pushing them to the side, and you're still being emotionally distant. Just because you're doing ministry and stuff, just because you're caring for somebody else, it still doesn't take away how they feel. And some biological children, they feel like they can't say anything. They feel like they can't explain it or they can't say nothing. And some people don't even, biological children that have parents in ministry, they don't deal with that issue. They don't deal with that pain and anger. All they do is like, you know what? I'm gonna be a first lady in the future. I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be that. I'm gonna find a baller. I'm gonna find someone famous, and it's the same pattern. It's the same pattern, and then the pastor neglects them and abandons them because he's busy, and it's like, oh yeah, it's the same pattern. It's the same thing going on all the time because they learned to just cover up the shame. They learn to cover up the shame, and then they're like, oh, they just focus on, oh, maybe, maybe I'm a first lady, or maybe I'm supposed to be with someone famous, so I don't mind sacrificing my time for other people, and they just try to ignore how they feel, but because they don't acknowledge it, they just like have that resentment, and they don't say nothing. It's just like they're angry, but they feel like they're not allowed to be angry because they're doing a good thing. Their parents are doing a good thing. So they feel like they're not allowed to feel neglected or abandoned because their parents doing a good thing. Next one is having to share money as well. Having to share the money. It does sound crazy, but some biological children, they have to go without because they're giving money to people in church, their community, their extended family members. So when they share all that money towards church, their village, um, the children have to find money for their course, college, like for their dreams and their passions. The government does help, but at the same time, they have to go about. And sometimes people judge people. Like some people are very judgmental. They see adult biological children, they don't have them. They're not reaching certain milestones. They're not reaching certain things, and they're confused. They're thinking, "Oh, you've got a parent like that," but you look at you, you low life, you're lazy. But they don't see the sacrifice they make. When communal parents, they donate a lot of money to church because they want to feel validated, they want to feel important, and they want to hide their shame by giving money. They now beg their children, their biological children, for money. They beg them for money and they say we need money because they try to do the image thing. They want to be seen as high, and they want to be seen as royalty. So they're like, give me money, and they got to sacrifice their finances because their parents are too power hungry. They love fame. They love that attention from giving money, even money that they don't have. They have issues of poverty all the time because their parent is very, very obsessed with approval. They've got the orphan spirit. They're so desperate. They have the orphan spirit. They have to give money because they want to hide their shame because they made silly mistakes, and they feel shame, and they feel like if they give money, they can cover up their shame of being silly and doing bad things in the past. They try to cover up their shame with money. And then the biological children got to pay, and pay the price, and they've got to neglect their passions, their goals, and everything like that, just for the parents' image, and is really really bad. It really is, and people judge these biological children like, oh, they're so cold, they're so distant, they're so lazy, they're this, they're that, and sometimes it's sacrifice as well. It's a sacrifice. Sometimes they give money and say, you know what, don't curse me. You can curse my children. You can destroy my children, but not me. I give my children to you. And they sacrifice their children. And it's really bad. Witchcraft is bad as well. They can't. They try to get a job. It's hard for them to get a job. It's hard for them to get a stable house. And they think, oh, they're lazy. They're this, they're that. They don't see the sacrifice they make, how much money they're giving to their parents, even the parent as well. Because we have communal parents, and we have the Jezebel and the Ahab. Then we have the bitter widow that's desperate and that has, in the Bible it says to take care of widows and orphans, but some widows are desperate. Some widows are, instead of getting taken care of, they take care of the church because they're so obsessed with the power, and they're bitter, and they're power hungry, and they're desperate, and they've got the orphan spirit, and they feel lonely and desperate and want community, and they feel like if they give all their money away, they'll be accepted. They want acceptance. So that's the sacrifice that some biological children got to make. So next one is they got to sacrifice their space. They got to sacrifice their space. Some even biological children got to share a room because some people end up being homeless or in trouble, and sometimes they even have to share a room, and they share a room because they don't their image, communal narcissist parents, their image is so important. They can't say no, and they've got to sacrifice their space. They've got to sacrifice everything because the parent is desperate for approval. The parent is codependent. It's not ministry. They're just busybody, they're gossip, they're codependent, they're passive enablers, and they want to feel important by being a codependent. It's codependency. They think it's ministry, but it's codependency. And the biological children got to sacrifice their space because they can't say no. The Ahab, they can't say no. And it's like they got to sacrifice everything, and they don't see that. They get the awards, they get the thank yous, they get the cards, and the biological children just there. They get screwed over, they get used. Oh, sorry, I need some money, and then some of these biological children, they gotta give their money away, and it's hard. It really is because even when they're going through trials and they're going through hard times and they're being bullied, and there's emergency. If there's an extended family emergency, if there's a church emergency, and the children have emergency, the children comes last, and that's hard to. It's really really hard for biological children to, when they have emergencies, they always put last, and they've got to self-soothe, and is really really painful. So next one is and they have to risk their life. It might sound it sounds crazy, but they have to risk their life as well because jezebelic parents, they don't have no boundaries. They will say yes to anything, even if it could ruin someone's life. Some people can be very have the murderous spirit. They're very very jealous. They act out, then have mood swings. They could be emotionally abusive, smashing stuff, and being very crazy. But some communal narcissistic parents, their image comes first, and they feel like they have to save it. They have the codependent mindset, and sometimes they sometimes God has to come in and save his orphans because they don't have no boundaries. They just say yes to everything. They have the codependent mindset. Not ministry. It's not ministry. They're codependent. It's not ministry. They have the codependent spirit. They're so desperate to be a fixer. They're people pleasers. There's nothing kingdom about that. There's nothing kingdom about being a codependent person and feeling that, needing that validation to feel cool, to feel important. That's not godly. That's not God. That's not confidence. That's people pleasing, and have to sometimes they risk their life because you let these people come in a house and they are up to no good, and they can literally end someone's life. That's it. Their life is at risk. They're literally they're like they're risking so much. No, no, they have to go through so much risk. So that's why it's painful when it's witchcraft as well. They got to deal with the arrogant, jezebelic, charitable parent and witchcraft. They want to get a job. They want to be successful. You know, they want to have their own home and leave out, but they can't because it's just so much witchcraft. The housing market, being laid off, just obstacles in a way, and they have all these things going on. It's really, really painful. It's the most painful thing in the world, but I know that God can come through and create a way. And because there's certain situations, God had to step in because it was too Jezebelic. The Jezebel was too power hungry. It was all about impressing leaders. It was all about power and vengefulness and stuff like that. And God had to come in because people's life was at risk. You know, some people's mental health was at risk, and they was losing it. And God had to step in because they didn't care. Oh, you know, the show must go on. They had that mindset of like the show must go on. I need my money. I want to be powerful. I want people to see me as powerful. I feel powerless. You know, when it comes to spiritual abuse or rumors and gossip and betrayal and all these different things, they feel like my image comes first. Sorry. I don't care if you're having a breakdown. I don't care if you're having a mental breakdown. I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if you're burnt out. We have to make money. We've got to be powerful. I don't want to feel small again. And they sacrifice their children. They're so power hungry. They're very, very power hungry. And sometimes God has to step in and say, you know what, you're being too power hungry. I have to step in and save my orphans. That's what God cares about, orphans. God cares about the sick. God cares about the sick and orphans and the powerless. He cares. And sometimes church culture, they get too power hungry. They get too power hungry. They get so obsessed with fame and attention. They want to feel powerful. And God has to step in and say, you know what, you're being too power hungry. You're being too power hungry. Like you're obsessed too much. You're obsessed with fame too much. And I have to come in and save my orphan because you're so power hungry and vengeful and bitter. And God has to come in. Next one I'll talk about is having to clear up the mess. So when I say having to clear up, biological children have to come and clear up the mess. And when I say mess, I mean financial mess, emotional mess, and spiritual mess. Because sometimes some foster kids, some foster kids or adopted kids, and you know, church kids, spiritual kids, they come with these generational curses. They come with these mental health issues. They come with like self-harm, you know, racism, neglect, abandonment, and drug abuse, all the different things. So they got biological children have to come and they have to clean up the mess. And sometimes that's not possible. If they're Sometimes some biological kids are so mentally messed up that because they've seen a lot, they have to sit there. Some of them are powerless, and they don't have the resources to move out. They've seen a lot of stuff and they help out a lot, and sometimes they get burnt out and they just have to bow. They have no choice to just carry on because they don't have the resources. And sometimes they've got to clear up the mess, the spiritual mess, the financial mess. You know, they might of like sometimes communal Jezebels are really bad with money. They're so bad with money. There's no such thing as saving, investments, and security when it comes to Jezebel. They need to show off. They need to show off. They're big show offs, and that's a poverty mindset. They feel like they have to show off and show out. And when there's a financial issue, they biological children have to clear up the mess, and it's just like it's the most painful thing in the world, having to clear up mess. You know, after showing off to pastors, after showing off at church, after showing off and being arrogant, the children have to step in and help them and give them money and help them out. And after they finish showing off to pastors, after they finish showing off to pastors, they got to come and help out and give money and help out because their image comes first. So they've got to clean up their spiritual mess, financial mess, because when These people come to homes. You don't know what they come with. They come with trauma. They come with baggage, depression, neglect, abandonment, drug abuse, domestic violence, neglect, loss, everything. And then we got to clean it up. People think that, oh, yeah, it's not that bad. Come to my house. And they think, oh, anyone could come here. Some charitable parents have that mindset. Oh, well, you're welcome. My house is for everybody. You're welcome. You're welcome. But some biological children, they're prophetic and they pick up everything. They pick up everything. They've got to clean up their spiritual mess. They've got to clean up the financial mess as well. So it's everything they've got to clean up. So yeah, there's a lot of clean up to do when it comes to biological children because they see everything, and then sometimes they don't benefit from it. They don't. They don't benefit. They don't get the awards. They don't get the pay slips. They don't get the title, but they get the burden. Sometimes that comes with like pain, sickness, resentment, bitterness, and tiredness. And people think that, oh, they're lazy. But there's no title to go with it. They work hard, they sacrifice, they help out, but there's no pay slip at the end of the month for that. And they suffer. And then people just see them as lazy. They work so hard to maintain the jezebelic parent image. And they don't get an award at the end of the month. They don't get the award. They don't get the pay slip. All they get is the burden and the pain. But God sees it. God sees it. And God is the God of justice. So next one is they are very two-faced. They are extremely two-faced. They could spend hours on the phone, be nurturing. They could spend hours being kind and caring and nurturing. They can be warm. They can speak to spiritual children for hours, adopted children for hours, and foster children for hours. They can talk for hours and hours and hours. But when it comes to their children, it's verbal abuse. It's like you're nothing. You're nothing. What you do is nothing. They just take that anger out on their biological children. They get the horrible side. They get the arrogant side, the passive aggressive side that no one sees. And people are like, they're probably thinking, why is your biological children so laid back and reserved and seem cold and distant? But sometimes it's that they see a different version of them. They see the passive aggressive version of them. They see the person that's like bitter, oh, after everything I did for the leader. And they just see the horrible side, the martyr, the miserable martyr side. And they just see the passive aggressive, verbally abusive side, the person that has a horrible tongue and they say horrible, mean things. And people don't see that. They're like, oh, you know what? They have a version in their head about the person, about the parent. And they're like, you know what? If I had this person, I'll be better. And, sometimes jezebelic not parents, they have that mindset. Like sometimes they just discard people they don't feel like they need anymore. Because sometimes, orphans, some orphans, fatherless orphans, sometimes they have resources, sometimes they don't. If they don't have resources or money, Jezebel's like, you're gone, bye. They're disposable. Like, okay, thanks for letting me use you, you're gone. And it's so sad to see that sometimes see people as opportunity, like a prop. They see people as stepping stones for their selfish ambition. And that person, they go, oh, you're helping me with this purpose, this calling. Thank you for helping me. And the person's helping them out, and they're getting worn out, they're getting burnt out. They're not getting a pay slip at the end of the month. They're helping out Jezebel. They're helping out Jezebel. They're not getting a pay slip at the end of the month. They're working. They're helping out. They're helping out. They're helping out. They're helping out. They're saying yes. They're saying yes. They're coming to agreement. They say yes. They feel like they're getting approval from their Jezebelic parent, and then they start to get ill, burnt out, depression, sickness. Once they have their breakdown, Jezebel's like, bye. Thank you for letting me use you. That's it now. The show must go on. They don't care. But guess what? God cares. And God don't like injustice. So Jezebelic parents, they see their children as like a stepping stone, a footstool. They're like, thank you for letting me use you. Okay, bye. Thank you for the rent money. Bye. Thank you for letting me borrow money because I gave too much money away. Bye. So they had that mindset of like, let me just use you for the time being because you're easy to use. And when life is getting too hard or you have job issues and you can't give that much money away anymore, like, bye. You useless to me now. Help my image. Bye. That's how some of these jezebelic people are, like, the image obsessed. And I think, like, I will talk about next is I'm gonna see what I discuss a lot of topics, like, but I just see what if I've missed anything. Yeah, I feel like I said what I need to say. I feel like I will end it with like a scripture. Um, Psalms 27, verse 10 says, "When my father and my father forsake me, then the Lord will take me up." What I want to tell you right now is that please stop idolizing spiritual mothers and fathers. Please stop idolizing being jealous of biological children. They don't have it easier than you. You might have a different story. I get it. Your story matters and you've been through stuff. But is what you see sometimes is not what you think it is. You get the validation, you get the affirmation that yeah, you have been neglected. But sometimes some people are suffering in silence, and it's such a horrible spirit experience when people don't empathize with you because of how much their parent has done good. And it's so important to compare yourself. It really isn't. It's really important to not compare yourself to people, and it's really, really important to put God first. Don't idolize spiritual parents. Please don't, because you didn't know what their character's like at home. You don't know how passive aggressive they are at home. They're probably very, very bitter. They're probably very bitter and they're trying to do ministry to cover up their shame. They haven't done the healing work. They're just gossiping all day. They're in people's business and they're busybodies and they're just so busy being a gossip and they want to feel important. That's not the same as want to be a good person. Want to feel important is not the same as want to do good to help people. Some people just want to be interesting. They want to feel important. They want to feel interest. They want to be interesting, and it's so important to put God first. To know that you just because it's okay if you felt abandoned, if you felt like you trying to fill a void by having a spiritual mother or father. They can't fill that void. Only God can fill the void. It's good to have covering. It's good to have people that look out for you. But know that if people hear your story, some people want to hear your story about poverty or lack of resources or your lack of support. They see that as prey. They think, oh my God, I could use her. Oh my gosh, I could use her. I'm like, oh. So really put God first and have discernment because some people, they're looking for people to exploit and use and say, oh yeah, she had nobody. I could use her as a scapegoat. She had nobody. And they get excited. They feel, oh, she's an orphan. She had nobody. Let me use her. So don't risk yourself being a scapegoat. Don't compare yourself. It's so important to put God first and to not take it personally. If you feel envy, like if you feel the jealousy towards people, like if people are being jealous of you and they're being passive aggressive, you don't hate you, don't take it personally. Sometimes people are neglected and they want to take out on you. So I'll end this live with prayer. Lord Heavenly Father, I just pray you may fill every void that we have. I pray that you remove the shame, the resentment, the bitterness we have towards neglect, abandonment. And I pray, Holy Spirit, you give us strength, wisdom, and adopt us, Lord, and provide for us, restore everything we thought we lost. In Jesus' name, amen. If you needed counseling or coaching or prayer requests, email me. Thank you for listening.